Okay, so I have some extra background information for those of you who are listening to this. This is Dave Barry's Lost in the Kitchen, and he is a humorous writer. It is a nationally syndicated columnist based at the Miami Herald. Dave Barry was born in Armonk, New York in 1947. He came to his present career as a humorist after working as a reporter and business writing consultant. He has won the Pulitzer Prize for commentary and published a number of humor collections. As do many of his pieces, Lost in the Kitchen depends for its humor and its insights on observations of everyday life and the stereotypical behavior observed therein. Much of the humor in this piece comes at the expense of Barry and his fellow men, who behave abominably, but, at least in Barry's case, realize it. Quote, "I realize this is awful," end quote. Barry candidly admits of his behavior and turns self-knowledge into self-mocking humor. Okay, so Lost in the Kitchen. Men are still basically scum when it comes to helping out in the kitchen. This is one of the two insights I had last Thanksgiving. The other one being that Thanksgiving night must be the slowest night of the year in terms of human sexual activity. Nobody wants to engage in human sexual activity with somebody who smells vaguely like yams and is covered with a thin layer of turkey grease, which describes pretty much everybody in the United States on Thanksgiving, except the Detroit Lions, who traditionally play football that day and would therefore be too tired. But that, as far as I can tell, is not my point. My point is that despite all that has been said in the past 20 years or so about sexual equality, most men make themselves as useful around the kitchen as ill-trained Labrador retrievers. This is not just my opinion. It is a scientific finding based on an exhaustive study of what happened last Thanksgiving when my family had dinner at the home of friends named Arlene and Jean. Picture a typical Thanksgiving scene. On the floor, 3 small children and a dog who long ago had her brain eaten by fleas are running as fast as they can directly into things, trying to injure themselves. On the television, the Detroit Lions are doing pretty much the same thing. In the kitchen, Arlene, a prosecuting attorney responsible for a large staff, is doing something with those repulsive organs that are placed in little surprise packets inside the turkeys, apparently as a joke. Surrounding Arlene are thousands of steaming cooking containers. I would no more enter that kitchen than I would attempt to park a nuclear aircraft carrier. But my wife, who runs her own business, glides in very casually and picks up exactly the right kitchen implement and starts doing exactly the right thing without receiving any instruction whatsoever. She quickly becomes enshrouded in steam. So Jean and I, feeling like the scum we are, finally bumble over and ask what we can do to help. And from behind the steam comes Arlene's patient voice asking us to please keep an eye on the children, which we try to do. But there is a famous law of physics that goes, you cannot watch small children and the Detroit Lions at the same time. And let's face it, the Detroit Lions are more interesting. So we would start out watching the children, and then one of us would sneak a peek at the TV and say, hey, look at this tackle. And then we'd have to watch for a while and see the replay and find out whether the tackled person was dead or just permanently disabled. By then, the children would have succeeded in injuring themselves or the dog, and this voice from behind the kitchen steam would call very patiently, Jean, please watch the children. I realize this is awful. I realize this sounds just like Ozzie and Harriet. I also realize that there are some males out there with hyphenated last names who have advanced much further than Jean and I, who are not afraid to stay home full time and get coated with baby vomit while their wives work as test pilots, and who go into the kitchen on a daily basis to prepare food for other people, as opposed to going in there to get a beer and maybe some peanut butter on a spoon. But I think Jean and I are fairly typical. I think most males rarely prepare food for others, and when they do, they have their one specialty dish, spaghetti in my case, that they prepare maybe twice a year in a very elaborate production, for which they expect to be praised as if they had developed, right there in the kitchen, a cure for heart disease. In defense of men, let me say this. Women do not make it easy to learn. Let's say a woman is in the kitchen, working away after having been at her job all day, and the man, feeling guilty, finally shuffles in and offers to help. So the woman says something like, well, you can cut up the turnips. Now, to the woman, who had all these sexist home economics training back in the pre-feminism era, this is a very simple instruction. It is the absolute simplest thing she can think of. I asked my wife to read this and tell me what she thought. This is what she said. She said before women's liberation, men took care of the cars and women took care of the kitchen. Whereas now that we have women's liberation, men no longer feel obligated to take care of the cars. This seems pretty accurate to me, so I thought I'd just tack it on the end here while she makes waffles.